All right, for this explainer, we're going to jump in a time machine and head back to the 18th century. We're going to look at a pretty chilling prediction about the future of humanity, one that, believe it or not, still pops up in conversations about our survival today.
So, an 18th century cleric predicted our doom. Was he right? Well, let's get into it. The guy at the center of this whole story is Thomas Malthus. Back in 1798, he put out this theory that humanity was basically sprinting towards a total collapse. The big question we're asking is, after all this time, was he onto something?
So, to really get where he was coming from, you've got to picture his world. Check this out. 1 billion. That's it. That was the entire population of the planet when Malthus was writing this stuff down. It was a world right on the edge of massive, massive change.
And then there's today. 8+ billion people. The jump is just staggering, right? And that's exactly what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Malthus predicted this massive catastrophe that, well, it never happened. And yet, the very problem he was worried about has gotten, 8 times bigger.
So what on earth made him predict doomsday? To get it, we need to understand the exact historical moment he was living in.
Malthus was living right at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and things were changing fast. You had new medicines popping up, the plague was finally disappearing, so death rates started to drop. Then, boom, 1796, Edward Jenner comes up with the smallpox vaccine, a total game changer. What you have is what experts call stage 2 of the demographic transition. Birth rates are still high, but death rates are falling off a cliff. The result? A population explosion. And Malthus was watching all of this unfold, and frankly, it freaked him out.
And this wasn't just some gut feeling he had. No, he thought he had cracked the code using some pretty simple math.
Okay, this is the core of his whole argument, and it's actually super straightforward. He said, look, population grows geometrically, or, exponentially. It goes 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. It just explodes. But our food supply, he figured that grows arithmetically, linearly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just a slow, steady climb. You can already see where this is going, right? Those two trends are on a collision course. And that collision point, that's what we now call a Malthusian catastrophe. Basically, the moment we have more people than we can possibly feed. And he didn't think this would be a smooth landing. He predicted a future full of what he called misery and vice. We're talking famine, disease, war, all the grim stuff that would violently slam the brakes on population growth.
So, how would this correction happen? Malthus laid out 2 types of checks. On one hand, you have preventive checks. These are the things people could choose to do, like getting married later or having fewer kids, to kind of slow things down. But he warned, if those didn't work, then the positive checks would take over. And these are the nasty ones: famine, plagues, war. Basically, nature's way of brutally rebalancing the books by increasing the death rate.
So here's the big twist in the story. He was wrong. I mean, completely wrong. We blew past 1 billion, shot all the way up to 8 billion, and that global doomsday never happened. So what gives? Why didn't it play out the way he predicted?
Well, it turns out there were some massive blind spots in his thinking. I mean, how could a guy in 1798 possibly predict the huge leaps in technology we'd make? He had no concept of mechanized farming or chemical fertilizers that would make our food production explode. He couldn't imagine refrigeration, letting us ship food anywhere. And he only saw the start of the demographic transition. He didn't realize that as countries get richer, birth rates naturally start to fall.
And get this, some thinkers later on flipped his entire idea on its head. An economist named Esther Boserup basically said, hey, Malthus, you've got it backwards. She argued that a bigger population isn't the problem, it's the engine for the solution. All that pressure forces us to get smarter and more innovative. More people means more ideas, more hands to build things. Necessity is the mother of invention, right?
But hold on, we're not done with Malthus just yet. Because even though his doomsday clock was way off, his central idea, well, it just refuses to go away. It's actually made a comeback in the modern era.
Yeah, in the 20th century, a new school of thought popped up called Neo-Malthusianism. And these guys basically say, look, all that technology didn't solve the problem. It just delayed it. It kicked the can down the road. They argue we're still facing the same fundamental issue, a planet with limited resources and a population that keeps on growing. For them, the crisis isn't just about food anymore. It's about clean water, healthy soil, and the overall environmental strain of keeping billions of us alive. And that's really why Malthus is still so relevant today, more than 2 centuries later. His theory is kind of the ghost in the machine for so many of our biggest challenges. When we talk about sustainability, climate change, resource scarcity, we're essentially wrestling with the very same questions he raised. He forced us to think about that fundamental tension. How many of us can this planet really support?
So, that leaves us with a really big, lingering question. Malthus got the timing totally wrong, no doubt about it. Our own ingenuity saved us from his specific prediction. But was his core idea wrong? This idea that, at the end of the day, you can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. Is he ultimately right about that and we've just been lucky so far? Or will we humans always innovate our way out of trouble? That's the question he left us with, and we're still living out the answer.